Okay. We are really psyched to be joined by Holly Brown, who is a stand-up comedian, writer, and artist. So welcome, Holly.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
We found out, well, we met you because
Mhm.
our friends of the show, Kane Holloway and Greg Barrett.
Yeah.
Sorry, Greg.
You said it like beignet, like you put a little sass on it.
I know.
Greg Barrett.
Baron.
Introduce us to you because you have a stand-up show in LA called Salty as Fuck or Salty AF. And we went to see you and it was amazing.
I know. What a treat. Worlds colliding, people in real life, online, getting to meet in person. It was beautiful. I loved it. And thank you for coming. You said you had the best seats in the house in the back. So. But Leanna, I could hear your laugh from literally the stage. Cue laughter.
Exactly.
You know what? Comedy shows should pay me to come.
Love this
people
idea.
laugh. Yeah, people laugh at my laugh.
Yeah.
So I think I should start
Yeah, so
marketing
I
that.
don't know, stand-up comedians out there, DM Leanna if you're interested in this new
I'll
service
be like
being offered.
I'll be like the club hire, but like for comedy shows.
Yeah. You'll be really business-like right before the show, and you'll get your information. You'll read the script of, okay, this is who's on the show, and turn it on.
And then you'll become like a diva. You'll become like really difficult. You'll be like, I told them I need 2 fucking lemons in my water, you know. And then
Where's
the
my
goes on, and you're like,
piano? I like this idea, like cameo, but flipping it on the performers. Now you're the cameo. Maybe that was a business idea someone threw out and said, that's not good, but we'll see.
Now you're the cameo. That's hilarious.
So Holly, give us like some background of like what makes you you, like where did you grow up, like kind of like what brought you to this place in your life now?
Yeah, well, I'm from Los Angeles, which I know is rare, unicorn-like in people that are trying to be in the industry. But I'm from LA, born and raised. My dad worked in the industry. He worked on the show Frasier. If we have any Frasier heads listening, he worked on the show Frasier for its whole run. And he, worked in he did production design and set directing. So he did that. And he was an actor before that. So I think obviously in some regard, performing was in my blood. But growing up in LA, it's such a different, I think if you're already put in a box the second you are hit puberty. I mean, before puberty, I think in LA, I was tall and skinny. And the second I got tall and skinny, everyone was like, model, 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 model. And I was like, I have a lazy eye, lazy eye, lazy eye. But I do.
But I was going to say, is that true? Like I
can't tell. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but like you're doing that. But I feel like when people are just interacting with you normally, like you would never.
No, it's not a lazy eye. I don't have muscles in my left eye to look everywhere. So if someone goes, look over there, and they point to the left, I will do that and not always know I'm doing it. So it's cute. It's fun. It's, I'm living with it. But very quickly, everyone was like, you should be a model. And by the way, I don't feel that way about myself whatsoever. It was truly because I was tall and skinny. And, have you seen the show Pen 15 by any chance? They harken back to early 2000s, and that's ripe in my time frame. And if you went to a mall, pretty much anywhere, but especially in Los Angeles, you would just get pounced on by these agents and recruiters. And so probably every time I went to a mall, someone would be like, come sign up for my agency, come do this. And it was all mostly scams, but I knew I didn't want to do it, but it was the only thing anybody seemed like they supported me in. And so I started doing that. I shifted that towards acting because that felt a little more, I don't know, the next version in some regard of some type of performance that I knew I wanted to do. I knew I was funny. I didn't know you could be funny and pretty. I didn't know that. I thought I thought this is what people are going to value me for, so that's all I have to offer. And I sit here now probably a little disheveled, not my older days, but I definitely hit an age where I knew I didn't like any of the things I was doing, but I wanted to perform, and I loved the attention of making people happy, and knew I loved comedy so much. I was obsessed with SNL as a kid, as most performers are in some regard, and I just I fell into improv because somebody told me they would pay for my classes, so I did it. And I just was like, oh, this is it. I immediately found that I did not at all want people to look at me. I wanted them to hear me. But that's also been really difficult because I'm still coming out of a place of I was pigeonholed into this thing, and I still have a lot of attachments to it. I'm still really insecure, and I place a lot of value in how I look, because I still worry that's what only people care about me. Like, that's what I'll get in the door with, and then I'll surprise them later or something. But that's not how it works in stand-up. So it's unraveling. I'm trying to unravel this deep-seated insecurity that was embedded in me in a child, also trying to be valued for my words only at the same time. So stand-up is therapeutic. Put that little bow.
Wow. What an interesting story. And how old are you, Holly?
I'm 29.
Oh gosh, you look so young.
Thank you.
You look stunning, by the way.
You're so sweet. You're so sweet. I'm like, you're a fashionista over here, so please compliment me. I need it from you. Yes, are you kidding me? I've followed you for a week now on Instagram, I think, and every time I'm like, nailed it.
You know what's funny is like most of my clothes are thrift store.
I will kill you. I'll kill you.
But Redlands has, I mean, LA does too, but like Redlands has some really good like thrift like stuff, because Redlands is actually really like a wealthy community, but it's not LA. So like things are still cheaper.
Oh.
And so like I get like nice stuff like for cheaper.
You have to go where the wealthy old people are. Like those are the best thrift stores.
Oh my God, that's so smart.
Yeah.
Growing up, one of my best friends, this kind of dated me anytime someone says they shop at thrift stores, and they're so fashionable. So one of my friends in high school, if somebody went up to her and was like, oh my God, I love your shirt. Where'd you get it? She'd just be like, oh, I got it at Goodwill. Sorry. And then she'd turn to me like Regina George and be like, I got it at American Apparel, bitch. So part of me, I think, truly doesn't trust that fashionable people get the clothes where they say they do.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting, because I feel like people would be more like, they would more like brag if they got it like at a fancy place, right?
I know. I think she wanted people to think she was a smart thrifter, and I don't know. I think maybe she didn't want people to own the same clothes as her.
That's what it is, right? You don't want to blow up your spot, right? It's like, you don't go on a podcast or a show and like talk about like your favorite pizza place, because then everyone's going to know about it, and then it's going to be a pain. Right. You want to keep it a secret just for you, right? Yeah.
That's what it felt like in the most mean girl way. And and I'm going to text her now. I'll be like, Sarah, do you remember that thing you did one time that I thought about every day?
So I'm wondering, Holly, can you talk more about like how like modeling, because that's essentially what you did, right?
I dabbled in it. So I had a really, for lack of a better word, tumultuous childhood. And what my ability to actually be able to pursue was really limited by my circumstances, financially, parentally. And so I was able to do it when I could. There was just long periods of time when that was not first of mind for anybody in my household, but it was ebbs and flows. Like I would do it for a year. I would also like audition a lot for commercials and things as a child, which I'm so mad at. If I just fucking stuck with it as a child, everyone's a child actor. So I'm so pissed. And then it would be like a couple really bad years where nothing could happen, then I would try again. And then the second I turned probably like 17, 18, I did a little more on my own, but I never liked it. So I was half one foot in the whole time. You know, done a lot of photo shoots, haven't booked like great stuff, you know, because I didn't care about it.
Yeah.
Well, that's so, I mean, it's so interesting, and it's kind of like a sort of awesome story that like here you kept trying this like ill-fitting thing that like wasn't fulfilling to you, and was like kind of like, and you know, I mean, you know, we can certainly relate to like all kinds of like insecurities and stuff like that, and to be like putting yourself out there, right? Like auditioning and any kind of thing in show business is just sort of rejection and negative reactions and all that stuff. And so to be doing this thing that's like ill-fitting and probably like really confronting, or like, you know, in some like not fun ways, that makes it like all the more cool, like that moment in your life when like things clicked in, you know, with like improv and comedy, and you were like, oh, this, like I didn't even know like something could feel like good like this and exciting like this. Yeah.
Absolutely. And my siblings, I have two siblings, and so I've learned from therapy, like when you're in any household, there will always be a black sheep. You're just, no matter what, somebody's going to get that role designated to them. And regardless of the extent of how othered or like black sheep they are in the family, there is somebody that will fulfill that role. And so I became that because my sister, for many reasons, but one, my sister was the valedictorian. She was straight A student, perfect across the board. I also was a straight A student, but I entered school like always dating and having older boyfriends and things that immediately got me put in the box of Holly's the pretty slutty one. Even though I got the same grades, just not as good. I got A's and B's. Even though I was doing following in her footsteps, I would never be seen the same way because she was so smart. And then my little brother was the boy. And unfortunately, when you have two sisters and one boy, and in a family of mostly women, the boy just gets automatically praised for being a boy. And so I was put in the box of the only thing people value for me is my looks and not my intelligence, not anything else. So I started, I think, to inhabit the black sheep role a little bit as well. But yeah, that definitely also contributed to the feeling of like, well, this is what people care about. So that's what I'll lean into maybe sometimes. And then I would reject it and get pissed and, you know, fuck society and try to be a little bit of a rebel about it. But then it always fell back there because that's all I knew.
How did that like impact your mental health?
What if I was like, great? Terribly. I didn't know where my self-worth lied. I knew that I was funny. I knew I was smart, but I think where it impacted me the most is the lack of, I don't know the word. I don't want to say praise, but yeah, I guess praise. You know, I had nothing fostered in me, talent-wise, skill-wise. Nobody wanted to foster that. No one wanted to praise that in me. They just assumed, oh, Holly's the pretty, tall, skinny one. She'll be fine. Nobody needs to, you know, compliment her on a skill because, you know, and I think in a lot of ways, when you're put in that box, people resent you too. People think, oh, we don't like you, a compliment for a skill. Ugh. And I would just watch my sister and my brother get praised left and right for things that I knew I had as well. And I knew I wasn't being praised for that. So I think I, at 29, am rejecting a lot of the things that I just adopted because I had to at the time for survival. But yeah, now I'm definitely in a place where I know my self-worth, I know my skill sets, all these things, but also part of me is like, am I too late? But in the entertainment industry, that question can arise, you know. Am I a little too late to be understanding this part of me that I could have hoped, I wish I had accessed sooner for a career? So that's where I'm at now.
Holly, I'm 41 and I'm just like figuring out who I am and how to like be a human being. So you're definitely not too late.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for saying that. You are 41. It's fucking crazy. I have no barometer for age. I'm like, these are my friends. They're 29.
Well, I mean, I have always been exceptionally immature, so that's probably what you're
Good for you.
Yeah, right. So are you in therapy now? Like, because we're
Hell
big
yeah.
like therapy people.
Oh hell yeah. I was as a child put in therapy very young. And that sounded like I killed someone. My household had a lot of problems, and instead of wanting to focus on any of the problems familially or with my parents, they saw me as someone that was loud, and like I was at the same time I was only valid for my looks. You could tell deep down I hated that. So I was really loud, and I would point things out and be angry about the things happening around me. And so instead of addressing that part, my parents put me in anger management at 11. Wow. When fully I did not relate to anybody there. I was angry about them. I was not angry about life. And
that's like a weird, like, sorry to interrupt you, but I think that's almost like a weird like gaslighty thing. Because you're no, like I have very valid reasons to be angry.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like,
well,
you need to fix that, you know?
It's just a parents with a crumbling marriage trying to thinking that there's, we can't focus on our problems or it'll make our marriage even worse. Like it'll for sure end if we address the problems and say them out loud. So instead, our problem is Holly. So we have to address that. And I was put in therapy at 11. Anger management didn't do much for me because I wasn't angry at everybody. So it's from then I've been off and on in therapy just because I was also told as a child, like, your self-worth only lies in your looks, but otherwise there's something wrong with you internally. And I was off and on in therapy my whole life. I still do it to this day. I will never not do therapy. But I think in a way I'm so not grateful, but grateful I started therapy so young that I never had a stigma about it. Like, I never thought anything was wrong with therapy. I thought it was wrong with me. So I'm a huge supporter of therapy. Anybody that's not in therapy, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot I relate to in your story. So like my parents got divorced when I was 14, and there was like the crumbling marriage time. And at one point they were seeing a marriage counselor, and my sister and I got brought in. And they were like, okay, this is the new way things are going to work at home. And they go, mom is going to parent my sister and dad is going to like make all the decisions and parent Jared. And I was like, I was not consulted on this. Like, cause my dad was like the angry, scary one that we all had to like tiptoe around and like walk on eggshells. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, but
oh my God.
Yeah.
Is yours similar, Holly?
No.
Well, but I mean, but it feels similar in that like you were sort of bearing the brunt as a child, right? Like, so the child should be like protected from what's happening in the parents' lives and stuff like that, instead of like actually like having to shoulder it, which it sounds like you did in this way, or like you were kind of like scapegoated in that way or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it kind of sounds like your parents were saying the solution to fix our problems is to make them our children.
Well, yeah, no, go ahead. Sorry.
That's insane. I am so endlessly curious about afterwards, but
so it was interesting. I won't go too deep into it, but like when you talked about the role you played in your family versus your sisters, like, I have one sister, she's 1 year older, and in a family where there was like lots of fighting and like yelling and violence and stuff like that, my role was to try to be like the peacekeeper and like try to like, I was constantly trying to like read the room and like make people laugh or like de-escalate, like, and so I like learned how to like read people and soothe people and like do what they you know, like expect and whatever. And my sister, for her own survival, went the opposite way. Like she made herself like a lightning rod. Like she would like provoke and like fight and like bring it onto her, which I had like a lot of resentment for her for a long time, because I like, then, you know, then shit would blow up, which was like the thing I was constantly trying to prevent. And so I would be like so angry with her. I'd be like, why can't you just fly under the fucking radar? Like me, right? Like, but but now, like through lots of therapy, right, I have so much love and compassion for my sister, and we're like really close now, because I'm like, oh, that's what you were doing, like that's what you had to do to survive, and I had to do what I had to do to survive. So it's just
that compassion part that you just mentioned. Like I don't think a lot of sibling relationships get that if they didn't have what you just had to deal with. You know, what you both had to deal with. And I relate to that a lot, for sure. My little brother is almost 6 years younger than me, and it wasn't until this past year that I had like a conversation with him and kind of realized, oh, he doesn't know, he was enough removed from everything that he for sure had put me in I was his lightning rod for sure. And you know, because he was a little too young at the time that things were happening in our family to know. He only heard the loudness. He didn't understand the nuance of, you know, oh, Holly's being made the scapegoat again, and she's really fucking pissed about it. And so I was for sure, we've had a lot of talks now as adults where he's been like overly apologetic of like, I'm so sorry that I assumed you were the problem because of the noise and not what was underneath the surface. And so
that's so beautiful that you like had that moment with him.
We've come a long way, you know, but from like 29, I'm like, God damn, if we could have done this at 20 or 19 or 15, but you know, better late than never, for sure.
Yeah, just take it and love it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know,
definitely.
You know, it's interesting. I love what you just said, because I feel, you know, in the episode that I just released about my story, I felt like what you just said is like everybody thought I was the problem, you know, and for years, like, you know, and it was kind of like me then believing that like I was the problem, and then spent years like unbelieving that. And you know, like I feel for you so much of like what you've gone through and like how much strength that it takes to like get to where you are today. That's incredible.
I don't know if you relate to this in any way, but I know for me, when everyone made me the problem and I started to feel like I was a problem, believe it, my version of correcting that to people was overcompensating with communication and constantly trying to get people to understand verbally, no, this is what's happening. So I would just think I was picking up on nuances of, oh, there's a something there that they miss, so let me try to fix that. But in return, a lot of times it makes you seem a little, for lack of a better word, you know, I don't want to ableist, but a little crazy. Like when you're the one trying to fix the problem someone else put on you, you feel you're scrambling at all times, and then that scrambling gets noticed more than what you're actually saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I found myself just sharing what had happened with people that didn't deserve to hear it, like right away, like trying to like get people to understand why I had made the decisions that I had made. And I just wanted to feel like heard and seen, and like for people to like be like, it wasn't your fault, like, you know, and and then I was just like, just vomiting everywhere and like dumping on people, and then still not getting the validation because I didn't really believe it myself.
I 100% agree with that. That's exactly what I did. And I didn't know until last year that's what I did.
I feel like I just learned something about you. Like when you were saying that, Holly, I was like, oh my God, like this is like I understood like where that comes from in you. And I can see how like what a difficult, like, no-win experience that is, like, you know, like the two of you have in common. It's like when you're saying to people like, no, like, listen to me, like, I'm not crazy, like immediately everyone's like, yeah, of
You're
course.
crazy.
Of course that's
right.
what you would say. Right. It makes you sound more crazy. And like, and at the same time, if you're saying like, no, I'm innocent of this crime, like, it's not my fault, like, this, it's the same thing. And you two are like saying both of those things to people constantly.
And we're women.
Yes.
So like that, then we get judged even more because like, then there's a stigma that, oh, we're batshit crazy.
Mm-hmm. And that plus you're all of this cacophony of everything that, like, it's too much. That plus if you are diagnosed with any type of mental health, anything, that's people's first brain. That's where they first go. Because their gut is telling them, oh, she's scrambling. She seems a little like desperate for me to understand. So I'm going to assume it's her mental illness and not valid. It's not come from a place of that I would come from. That's what I always felt like I was getting from people, because the second I was diagnosed with something, that they could lean on that to then fully think I'm the problem instead of, no, this you probably have something too, bitch. You're just not diagnosed.
So like,
hold on.
Go.
Okay, first, cacophony is a great word.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, nice, cacophony. We got it in.
Yes, thank you.
Second, and
I'm going to use it more.
Yeah, please. I think we're probably going to ask the same question. Do you feel comfortable sharing your diagnosis?
Yeah, absolutely. I will champion mental health reform and everything till the day I die. So it's it was a journey. I was initially, this is interesting, diagnosed with bipolar disorder. After I tried to kill myself, I was diagnosed as bipolar, and I never related to the diagnosis so much as everyone told me it was accurate. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm bipolar. I get it. I have like really highs and really low lows, but so does my life. Like, not me personally so much as my literal life had highs and lows that I had no control over. And I was then reacting to. So I don't know. I always didn't connect to the diagnosis totally, but I felt some relief knowing that what was happening wasn't my fault. And then after I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, because a lot of times that gets umbrellaed in when you have a mental health issue, you also have OCD. Your anxiety or however your lack of control in your life can also manifest trauma-wise in, now you want too much control. And so the second I was diagnosed with OCD, that one I was like, yes, this one I feel seen by. The bipolar one's still kind of hanging by a thread, but I thought I had it. I told people I was bipolar, and it wasn't until last year that I was on TikTok actually, and I was scrolling and I got a lot of not ads, but things about ADHD and the overlap with what both bipolar symptoms are and ADHD is a lot more crazier than I expected. And then there was just every single symptom I agreed with ADHD, whereas bipolar, I was cherry picking, or I had to cherry pick based off of what other people told me. And so right now I'm trying to explore an ADHD diagnosis, because women are often diagnosed with bipolar disorder when they have ADHD.
Interesting.
Because especially at a young age, because women are seen as emotional, and they're diagnosed with emotional disorder when it could really be ADHD, attention deficit. And it's like, I never would have known that without TikTok.
TikTok is wild.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like, it's the whole gamut, right? Like, there's wonderful things about it, where you're like, oh, I'm so glad this exists. And then there's times where you're like, should this exist?
I think it shouldn't, but
yeah, I know, right? Well, Holly, thank you so much for being so transparent about that and open with us. Our listeners, if they've listened to the last episode, I shared that I was diagnosed with bipolar. And it does resonate with me. I have some very clear symptoms and experiences that I've had that I still, work through. And I have decided to be on medication, and I kind of regulate it as best as I can. Do you go the medication route, or how do you kind of manage your mental health?
It's tricky. I feel like I was set up for failure when the second I was diagnosed with anything, I was like, shit, this isn't going to help anything, because my mom was and is a drug addict. So like my whole childhood was marred with drugs and addiction, and it started with whereas a lot of times it starts with prescription pills, and it goes from there. And so my whole life, I watched a woman that was a drug addict, not raise me, just live in a home, like live in the same home as me, and while my siblings had to raise ourselves. So I was so hell-bent, and my dad as a child was an alcoholic. He was diagnosed with cancer when I was 13, I want to say. Yeah, 13. And so he stopped being an alcoholic, like, thank God. But my mom was still a drug addict. So I lived in a home of addiction and immediately knew I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to be an addict. But it can seep in your brain and not understand the difference sometimes of like taking medication. I internalized it as I don't want to depend on something, because what could that lead to? And I've been really apprehensive about taking any medication because of it. I've dabbled, but I've never done enough to know what it would do to me, because I can't let go of the fear of, like, even if these doctors say it's not addictive, I'm like, but what if?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely, that makes sense. Like the fear of that for you. What do you do instead? Like, how do you manage it?
One of us like, I burn cities down. I do a lot of therapy. I've also, my mom, because she could just go to quack doctors and get prescriptions for things and not ever be talking to a therapist about them. And so my headset was, well, when I have a therapist I trust, maybe then I can explore medication, because this therapist will, I will build that relationship that I never had. And so but that was just me basically saying, like, I'll find a way to never do it. Maybe I'll jump from therapist to therapist and things. So I didn't for a really long time, because I also didn't connect with the bipolar diagnosis 100%. I also really resented being not just made to feel like my whole life something's wrong with you, but then kind of having that confirmed to the outside world. Obviously, I view mental health completely differently than that, but to have other people they get the validation they want, that, oh, there is something wrong with Holly. So I'm still getting no validation for anything I'm feeling, whatever. And I rejected the idea of pill medication, because I was like, I'm going to do this on my own. I don't want to take the medication and then people automatically assume you're better the second you're medicated, because that's the box they wanted checked for themselves to feel better about how they view you. And I didn't want to let people have that power. So I did a lot of therapy. I really invested a lot in exercise and fitness. With OCD, my brain is always running, and it's running this ship up here. And so when I'm able to, I do a lot of like HIIT exercises. So when I'm able to be super, super physically active, I can quiet my brain for a second. So I do a lot of that. That's the thing that I focus on. And it also helps me feel accomplished. Like I check something off for myself that day, as opposed to like, even if I spiraled, even if I had a terrible night and I was spiraling and, like couldn't stop obsessing over an object or a thing or a thought, I still did I can rest back and look back in my day and be like, well, I did go to the gym and it kind of helped a little, even not totally, you know, but it did help.
Yeah. So what is it like for you to talk about like this stuff like in your act, right? Like I'm wondering if that's like sort of empowering or like part of even part of like when we talk about like sort of managing and things like that.
It was absolutely fucking terrifying the first time I did it. And the first time I did it was actually after my second stint in the mental hospital, not to brag. I'm a super senior. Yeah, the second time I was in a mental hospital afterwards, I was doing stand-up at that time. This was when I was 26, so not that long ago. And I had, honestly, mental hospitals, you know, Leanna, I'm sure you like, there's just so much to talk about with them. And there's, when you're also you have to look at it from a funny perspective at some point. And I was like, that's going to help me. I thought, let me try this. Let me see if this will help me get through what I just endured. And then the first time I tried to joke about it, I was at the show and I loved the joke. I was so happy. Like, I'm on stage telling these people this thing that I, up until that point, only told very select people. And then I did it and I felt like, okay, now what? I can talk about fucking anything on stage. Who cares? But that same night, I was sexually assaulted by another comic. And that had heard me talk about having come out of mental hospital the week before. And so it kind of made me feel like in a way, it made me feel like I have to make this work. I won't let this person, no, I'm not gonna let this person stop me from trying to talk about mental health, because you're the reason sometimes people go into those places, you know? And so I kept doing it. It was I could have ran at that moment. I could have stopped and just gone back to the kind of jokes I was doing, but it made me not want to do that.
Wow. But you should have seen, like, when you said that, both Jared and I were like, we just Holly, I'm so sorry that you have gone through what you've gone through. Just to roast you for a second. You have thrown some bombs at us very flippantly.
Yeah, just casually
threw it out, and we're just like,
I know. And if I know.
No, it's great. No, I mean, honestly, it's so cool that you're so like, you know, I think that's a lot of like strength to be like, yeah, so then this happened and whatever. Yeah. I mean, it just shows like how far you've come on your journey, right?
I think when something happens to somebody like that, like sexual assault, or like my dad died of cancer. And, you know, I think a lot of times people want to look at that and think that's their cornerstone, or like that's their big bad thing. And that's what will allow them to talk about, like, socially. And that happened. Like, the second my dad died, like, people will, you know, ask me about my dad and give me so much sympathy and validation and be like, I'm so sorry he died, blah, blah, blah. But my mom's a drug addict and nobody feels bad for me about that, because it's still, it doesn't, people can't connect the sympathy, like, send, you know, things there in the same way. And if you tell somebody, oh, I was sexually assaulted, I feel a lot of times people are like, oh my God, that's horrible. And then, like, the reality is, like, I've been sexually assaulted and I've been raped. Like, there's just the sexual assault, that one incident was one in probably 20. And so I do feel like a lot of times as a woman too, if you say, oh, I've been sexually assaulted 20 times, society still has that thing in their brain that goes, but why? Like, why have you been sexually assaulted? What situations are you putting yourself in? But they'll have sympathy if you say you were raped once, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like a lot of times people just get one big moment, and I feel like I have so many, I can't just pull one.
Yeah. And because
everybody does.
Yeah. And I think that's so true, that people will kind of connect with you and give you sympathy and give you space if it's like something that's like tidy and fits into their like acceptable
that they don't have
box.
to think about beyond that one conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So fuck people. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, that's what I was going to say is like, first of all, fuck the people that have sexually assaulted you and, that raped you.
Yeah.
And that have judged you and put a stigma on you and put you in this box. And like, fuck those people, like it's really sad that like our society doesn't hold space for trauma. Because
absolutely.
Because everybody's just like, you're looking for attention or, and I think that's why it took me so long to share my story, because like, you don't know how it's going to be accepted. Like, and you don't know the judgment behind it. And the truth is there is judgment behind it and it won't be accepted. And like, I really appreciate you and how vulnerable you're being with us right now. And that you're able to like take what you've been through and bring it to like an avenue that helps you heal, but also that, gives people like laughter is incredible.
Thank you. It's weird though. I feel like I only do like sex jokes or mental health jokes. So I'm like, oh, what's happening there? What should I talk to my therapist about? Should I do my set for my therapist? What's happening? But I do think there's something to unravel there as well. But like, oh, what are you pulling from for stage? Like these two huge things. When I think about it, I'm like, oh, this was a huge part of my life. This was a huge part of my life. What's next? I mean, who knows? I've done dead dad jokes. I like to be dark when I can. And then I think coming in with a dick joke helps people just be like, oh, Jesus Christ, I can release my butt clench. Like,
I think that's really it. So I watched Michael Che's comedy sketch I think he's on Netflix, actually. It was very dark. I don't know if you've watched it yet, but I could see you kind of like, I don't mean to like comedian explain to you, but like, I can see you taking this and like, like almost telling your story.
That's what I want to do. Also, comedian splaining is just called mansplaining, actually.
Nice. Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's like alchemy, right? You're turning something like bad or just neutral into like laughter and like something that's poignant and that will help people like see things in a new way and whatever.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking of like have you seen that like really famous set that Tig did like when she found out she was diagnosed with cancer? Like that's like it's like an amazing 15 minutes. She just like walks on the stage and was like, hi, I have cancer. Like the day she found out, and it was like all improvised. And like, because I think it's cool that that's been part of your journey as a performer, Holly, is like to find like your voice in the way that we've talked about, like finding our voices as people. And like, I think people relate to things that are like real for you. And so if that's mental health and dead dads and dick jokes, then like, fuck yeah.
Yeah. And I think to me, it helps me find my audience, because if I do a show where I know a lot of times, depending on what set I do, how I will be received. So and it's like a lot of that is like going into a show and looking at the crowd, seeing what jokes they're laughing at currently, and then either deciding, am I gonna try to do a bunch of jokes that I don't think will work, or lean into the classic like easy stuff. But when I'm not leaning into the easy stuff, even if not everyone's laughing, if I have a couple people come up to me afterwards, which in one regard it's tough, because someone will be like, I tried to kill myself, and I'm like, yikes, okay, let's not yikes on what you did, but like, can we shake my hand first? But I feel so much happier than when I have a couple people coming up to me complimenting my joke about staying in a mental hospital than any other joke. So even if that is only 3 people for a packed room, and those 3 people come up to me after and want to talk about it, I just won. I found my audience. And then when I keep growing and growing, that audience will continue to find me. So I'm not so worried about pleasing every crowd in that way. I want to have the audience that like feels seen by what I'm saying, not just an audience I'm making laugh only.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love that.
Well, and so like, I'm wondering, cause like, so you talked about like talking about like mental health and dark stuff in your comedy, but also talking about like sort of sex and relationships and stuff like that. So can we like pivot?
I was
to
gonna
that?
say, let's talk about like hand jobs and
well, and can you share with us your current relationship status situation?
Yeah, I'm engaged to the love of my freaking life. He's upstairs. I love you. Yeah, we met each other. Oh gosh, actually, I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna take up so much time with all my stories, but we met each other when we were both in relationships. I don't even know, 7 years ago. We worked at bars. I worked at a bar. It was Romeo and Juliet. I worked at this bar. He worked at the bar across the street.
Like rival bars.
Yeah. It was like hillbilly Romeo and Juliet. And we both went to Big Bear for Oktoberfest with our restaurant friends. And this is the part that I feel bad about. At the time, like I knew of him, but I didn't know. I don't know. He had a girlfriend and the girlfriend was a regular at my job. So I just didn't even entertain the idea. I was like, oh, she comes in all the time. I'm not gonna look twice at this. I'm not gonna look him up and down and think he's cute. And then we met in Big Bear and I was like, oh, he is cute, but damn, he's got a girlfriend. Didn't even enter my brain. Just carried on my life. I also had a boyfriend, but I cheated on him a lot. So oh my God, I hope he doesn't listen to this.
You might have to send an email.
I'll go to if he doesn't notice, like list number 20, 100 million that we weren't right for each other, dude. I wasn't like hiding it well. We met a long time ago. Then I reconnected years later when I had broken up with said boyfriend and went to that bar thinking like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to the bar across from my job. He was bartending. He was apparently heavily flirting with me, but I had a girlfriend with me, so I didn't know who he liked. And he's heavily flirting with me. We add each other on Instagram because that felt like we'll suss out whoever he DMs.
Yeah,
That's
smart,
funny.
smart.
Then I go to his Instagram and the first picture is of the girl that I thought he was dating. And so I was like, if they had just broken up, I was like, he's not over her. You know, first picture, your profile picture, like every picture. And so I then like didn't entertain the idea, and he was very over his relationship, just not good at Instagram, which is why his Instagram says his name doesn't Graham. But
oh my gosh.
And from that point, it took probably 6 months for me to slowly see, oh, he doesn't have a girlfriend. Like he's not interested. He is interested in me. He's not interested in dating her. And also a lot of people I knew her. So that was like territory I didn't want to wade into. Then he would DM me occasionally, and I don't know, I could tell he's interested, but he didn't make a move. So I told him to ask me out. I made him ask me out eventually once I realized he wasn't in a relationship. And then the first date we had, I don't know, we were both like, this is it.
Wow. Wait, can you give us the details on exactly how you made him ask you out?
Oh my God, I hope he is listening. First of all, I fully lied to him about something in order to get him to ask me out, which he didn't find out till a couple of years later. But we were DMing, and I don't know, I really was at the time like dating around, and not in that moment having a lot of sex, but like when I was in a relationship, I was having a lot of sex. So I wasn't entertaining the idea of a boyfriend still. Like I just left a relationship that I cheated on somebody a lot. And then I thought I was a cheater. I was like, well, that's just me. So I'll just keep having sex with people. And then I thought he was cute. I was dating people, but not seriously. I thought he was really cute, but he kept kind of like leaning into like, I'm a nice guy and it's hard to date, but not in like the toxic nice guy way. where he's like, women just don't like nice guys. Like,
I hate that.
He was just coming across like a nice person. And I don't know. I think I sensed, I couldn't tell what it was from. Actually, I don't even know. Maybe he'll tell me later. I sensed like an insecurity about trying to put himself out there. And I thought he was really cute and hot, and I did want to have sex with him to some level. So we were texting, and he was telling me he was playing the Nintendo Aladdin game. And he was like telling me, and I was like, I love that game. I used to play it all the time. Never played it in my life. Never even touched it.
Nice.
And so I was trying to like get him on board of thinking I was cool as well as cute. And I just remember kind of being a little frustrated over text, like, I am giving you every fucking signal, dude. Ask me out. And he didn't. And I didn't know if he was just couldn't get out of himself being the nice guy, like an actual nice guy, of not wanting to like do the wrong thing. So I just said, why aren't you asking me out? And
good for you.
And then he was like, okay, yeah, all right.
I just don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like,
absolutely not.
Like, I just think some guys, like, especially like nice guys, they're just kind of oblivious.
Oh yeah. Dudes do not like it, like the hints that you all think are like so obvious. We're like, oh, I didn't even realize that's what that was.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be like literally like, I'm interested in having sex with you.
Are you interested in sticking your dick in my vagina?
Check yes or no, right? Yeah.
Draw the penis on yes or no. Yeah. Yeah, that's the arrow. And then I thought he was just a nice guy though. Like, truly, he was just so nice and so different than anybody I dated. And then our first date, the second we sit down, he puts his hand on my leg, and my brain was like, oh, he's not a nice guy. He'll sleep with everyone. Like, his body language somehow indicated to me that he was a player for some reason.
Interesting.
It like flipped, but I couldn't understand that. I found the person that was like me. Oh, you're someone that loves to have sex, and you're very sexual and intimate, and you don't care, like, you're not going to play a game. But I didn't know that. I just assumed men could be one or the other at that moment.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this guy's not the nice guy. He must be a player, and he just wants to have sex with me. And then we were going back to his car, or he was walking my car or something, and we kissed. And I was like, oh, turns out I don't care. I just want to try with this guy, because it was just like, it changed everything when we kissed. And I didn't care if he was a nice guy or if he was a player. I was like, he's what I like. So, and then it turned out we were just so similar. Like, we both were very sexual, but also good people. And I think a lot of times have the stigma behind being super sexual makes you a player, and so that wasn't the case. And we were both just similar.
I have a general question that I'm curious about, but you go ahead.
Let me say something really quick. Yeah. So I struggle with kind of the same thing, Holly, where I'm like very sexual, like a very, very sexual person, but I am so worried that men just want to have sex with me. It's like, so like, I want to have sex with them, but then I'm like, well, you just want to have sex with me. Like, and then I get nervous, and then I like get way in my head and anxious. And so what I want is kind of like that, of like, I want a nice guy who like wants to have sex with me and honors my sexuality, but like also doesn't just want to have sex with
also
me.
Sees you and cares about you as a person. Right?
Yeah. And I think I also have felt like because I have like a nice bum, and like I think like I'm a fairly attractive person, and I have an attractive personality, and I get hit on a lot by men, and married men, and all types of men. And Like I'm so deep from all my traumas. I so deeply just want to be like loved that I'm like, he likes me. And then they're like, oh no.
Well, I so agree. Like, I do think there's a level at which like we know what we want and we know who we are as people. We know we're capable of both. But if you've been lacking in one department, like if you're lacking like the love from a partner, the security of a relationship, and you've only ever gotten that one side, maybe both exist, but you're not going to know it when you need it. Yeah. Like, I think it helped, and not that I think that this shouldn't matter at any stage, but it helped like when we started to talk about our sexual past, extremely the same. Our numbers were high, and so I think we both felt like, oh, people have judged us for this in the past. We're not going to judge each other at all. And I definitely I don't even know if I've ever told anybody my number but him, because I knew what that meant, what people would view you as. And especially like a guy, even how funny, like I'm sure you've been in a scenario where you even meet a guy and you're like, all I want is to have sex with you, but I don't want you to only want that from me.
Yes.
But I think it's because we haven't met a lot of people that can play both sides of that, like emotionally take care of somebody, even for that brief period of time of like, I just want you for sex. Because it's always just like, I do think men have a special way of making women feel discarded or women feel used.
Yes.
And that's the feeling. And
I don't think, of course there are women that do that. Of course there are people, anybody that can do that. But I think we're so used to that. And it's just, you don't get both at the same time often. We're also told with marriage, like settling. So we're told that the moment you find your person, you've settled. And a lot of times people like to talk about how like sex is not a part of that part, in marriages and stuff. So I internalized that when I was dating. I was like, oh, I'll have my fun, but when I'm just when I'm done with that, I will settle. And I also didn't want to get married for that reason, because I was like, I don't want to have to choose, but I think I'm gonna have to. And I met somebody that I didn't have to choose.
Yeah. I love that.
Oh, that's lovely.
What was
my question? Is good sex like really just about connection? And that's for both of you.
Oh man. Oh no, I don't know how to answer this anymore, because like this sounds so cheesy. I can't even remember having sex with other people in the way that I used to, because I only want to have sex with one person now. Like I don't know. I think you can for sure have good sex without having that connection. And you can have great sex without having that connection. But I think it's mutually exclusive. Like that's a separate thing. Then when you find that connection and also have that sex, that's a separate feeling. Like it's two separate feelings entirely. Both can give you pleasure. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. And I can totally relate to when you're with someone and you're so like, you love them and you're having good sex. Like you don't even want to think about, like, it's like hard to even like all those people seem gross and like, like I can't believe it kind of a thing, at least for me. I struggle with like really getting into sex with someone that I don't have like a deep connection with. But I've had like some decent non-connection sex.
Well, I mean, I think though, if it's when you have like that sort of like one-off hookup that is like really hot and fun, like I think that's also because of connection. Like there's something you recognize in each other, or there's something that you share, like you're connecting on some level, even if it's kind of like unspoken or even unconscious or whatever.
Yeah.
But then like, I just love the way you said what you said, Holly, of like, it's like, I'm playing a whole different fucking sport. Like when you, when you find that person where that like depth of emotional connection is there, along with sort of like that physical connection.
I also think in those like when you do find that person, I think a lot of times it's colored like you are now, the intimacy is a love intimacy, but a lot of times him and I don't have sex in that way. Like it's just kind of, we know we love each other. And so therefore we can kind of do whatever we want. And that freedom is, I don't think picture or I don't know, displayed a lot of like, I would say a lot of the sex, like a lot of times we'll have quickies.
I love a good quickie.
Yeah. And like, I would say most of the time it's not like this deep, "Oh, I love you so much, I love you" sex. It is like the best version of every sex I've ever had because I don't have to worry about anything. So we'll just have sex on the stairs here.
Wait, are you having sex right now?
Yes, I am. Good boy. Like we'll do that, and I think to myself, I'm like, oh, you don't hear about your friends in marriages and stuff talk about sex this way when they're talking about sex with their partner. They don't talk about, yeah, no, it's just can also just be like fun and spontaneous, and we don't have to say I love you and look into each other's eyes the whole time.
Yeah.
Like that happens naturally. We don't force it. And a lot of times, yeah, it's, to me, it is truly the best version of everything I've ever thought.
I feel like I'm like so inspired by your story. I'm like because I think you're right. I think like a really fulfilling relationship in terms of like physical intimacy and even just a fulfilling relationship period is about like how much space can we make here?
Mm-hmm.
Like how fully can we be ourselves? Because I think what happens is two people start having sex and they find a place where they connect that sort of works for both of them. And then it's like, this is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if that's all you do, then that eventually is going to sort of stagnate. Right. But it's like,
yes.
Oh, hey, sometimes can you like put a finger in my ass or like call me demeaning names or like whatever. And it's like, yeah, like make room for that. Like, like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we do want to like look into each other's eyes and be loving. And other times like
Yeah.
we want to be like have a very different vibe to that. And like, can you share all of it? Right. Which is actually about opening
Mm-hmm.
your, like all of yourself up to
Mm-hmm.
one another and like being
Oh my,
great.
and I don't know about you guys. I think we're indoctrinated from such a young age to believe that, not believe, but just kind of understand like a lot of times marriage is sexless and that's normal. And men are the ones that want the sex more than the women in marriages. And like, I have friends that they talk about it like, yeah, we, wait until your third year of marriage, like they'll say those things as if we are so wrong and for wanting it to stay the way it is, and that it could never stay sexual for more than a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I see people enter marriages and they're like, yeah, we haven't had sex in 6 months. I'm like, what the fuck? If we don't have sex for like 2 days, both of him and I are like, I don't feel right, man. I don't feel right. Oh, come put your dick inside me. Like,
yeah. Well,
that helps.
And having been married for 8.5 years before, like, yeah, I know it's crazy.
I forgot. I remember you mentioning this on the podcast.
Yeah.
But when somebody says the number attached, you're like, whoa.
I know it's crazy. And actually our sex life wasn't that bad in terms of like, we didn't go super long without having sex. Like we never had periods like that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there was sexual oppression and like other like spiritual influences, like religious influences, but
mm-hmm.
What I will say is like people that are saying that, they're just being complacent in their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not putting in the effort in the relationship anymore, because the truth is relationships are hard work.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to feed them. You have to water them for them to keep growing. And if you're not doing that, if you're not dating each other, if you're not speaking each other's love languages, if you're not putting the work in, then you're not going to be having sex.
Absolutely. And I also think there's an element of people that sign up for marriage for the settling reason.
Yeah.
And then assume that's life, like that's my choice. So they don't, I think a lot of times when people have never met someone they can be in love with and be super sexual and their total sexual self with, they don't know that exists. So they assume that it's natural to not find your wife or spouse or whoever attractive as in that sexual way. Like they love them as a person. So that's the marriage love.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever want to be I'm going to find him sexy for the rest of my life. And I don't know, you just don't get told marriages are sexy. You just get told that they're happy, you know?
Yeah. I will say, I mean, I also like, you know, we're not parents. We've never been parents. And so like, obviously there's like situations like when you just had a baby, you know, you can't have sex for like a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
You know, and there's like situations like that, like if there's illness or whatever, but then you have to find ways to feed the relationship in other ways, right? Of like, maybe that's watching porn together and like masturbating or like, you know, like going and on a date and like making out in the car, you know, like there's other things that like can happen. And it obviously it's like easier for me to say now, like being single and not in a relationship. And, but yeah, I think it's just something that like going into a marriage period, like there's fear, there's like commitment stuff of like, will I be happy? Like, will I be happy? And I think the truth is if like, from what I've heard, this isn't my experience, but like, if you can nourish the relationship, you're going to go through hard shit together. You're going to get through it together. You're going to grow together. You're going to continue to learn who the other person is because there's going to be change, right? So you have to like follow that person with who they are as they're changing. Then actually, like, as you get older, you're more like your love is so deep that it's like, it's deeper and the deepest love you've ever felt than it could have ever been before.
Absolutely. Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious what your thoughts on this are, because I definitely I've known friends that before their weddings, they will express a deep, sudden, not just sudden, but like a deep hesitation, like a deep, oh my God, I don't know if I don't know if this is the right thing. I don't know. And I could be totally wrong. I just want to get another opinion of like, part of me thinks like, of course, there could be the element of your commitment phobic has nothing to do with your partner. But I also think in many ways that is a huge sign in a lot of cases, like, hey, if you have this insane hesitation right before you're going to do something, maybe you've suppressed that to some degree. And it's always been there and this person's not right for you. But I don't know if you're in your guys' experience talking to other people do a lot. Is that really common? Because we talk about it all the time where I'm like, I'm not going to feel getting married. It's like, I already want to be with you forever. I'm already gonna. So why would I be scared to sign a paper? You know?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, for me, like we talked about this in one of our episodes. Like I was at the altar and like, I had like a thought and like a gut feeling of like, that said to myself, run.
Oh my God.
my ex I never told him. And I had that feeling. And then our honeymoon, I started having a recurring nightmare, like literally on our honeymoon, that I would fall in love with someone else and wouldn't be able to love them because I was trapped in a marriage.
Whoa.
Yeah. But I think it's gonna, I think commitment stuff, like that fear, can also be attachment style and trauma response. And like, I definitely don't think it's black and white of like, that person is definitely wrong for you. But definitely it could be a sign. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I think it can be both. I mean, what's really interesting is like, I had this thought yesterday that sort of like crystallized for me. Well, it's sort of a theory. But that like, so there's things you like learn going through, like, it's kind of like when you have kids, you like learn something, you have a whole new outlook on life that you could never have if you didn't have that experience. Right. And I think the thing in a marriage is like, I don't know, like something that like is maybe like a spiritual like key, or like the thing that you learn is like open anyway. So it's like this idea of like, well, there's times where it's like not great and not gangbusters and we feel disconnected or we're stressed or whatever, open anyway. Like like, and there's times where like I put myself out there to my partner and like she sort of rejected me, but now, and my feelings are hurt about that, but now she's coming back to me, open anyway. Right. Like keep, and I remember like a person who'd been married for a long time. I was like, my favorite thing to do at weddings is find an older couple, like find all the older couples there and be like, hey, so like, what's the secret? And the best answer I ever heard was this woman and her husband both said it's like always remembering to turn back towards each other, which like I would say is like open, right? And like, and even those things that you're describing, how they like that feeling of something's off if you haven't had sex in 2 days, like that is sex is like the means for intimacy and vulnerability and connection, right? Like, and it's sort of like being like taking off all of your armor with each other and just being like purely connected. And so, and like, even I think if you're going to be with someone like 40 or 50 years, like there's going to be rage in that. Like, so, you know, in terms of like making room for everything, like you have to make room for like
the really bad times.
Yes. Like there are things I hate about you.
Yeah.
You know, like,
or so fucking annoyed with you, or like, you know, like it, but you're right. Like it's going to happen. Like you're going to have some bad times. Every relationship does. And
can you open anyway?
Yeah, I like that.
Right.
I love that, by the way. I can't wait to tell him. I'm just gonna walk in the door and be like, open. He's gonna be like, are you talking about the door? I love that. That's so great. And I just, I think successful relationships don't get highlighted in that way, like the bad parts. Like I hate when I'm talking to somebody and then I get surprised about something about their relationship that I felt like, oh, they kept that hidden. Because then my first thought is, why did you keep this hidden? Why did you feel the need to not ever tell me that you guys fight or that you don't have sex? Like, talk about it. How the fuck are you supposed to, you know, I have a friend that it just feels like they want to make themselves look like perfect to everybody. And sometimes because of that, when Brad and I are having problems or fighting and I want to talk to a friend, you have that second thought in your head of like, oh no, are they going to start to think that we're wrong for each other?
Oh yeah.
Because I'm opening up about all the bad stuff too.
Yeah.
And it's just all this internalized ways that we're told about success and happiness and that they are gray. They're not black and white, but I'm trying to do that more. I don't want to be seen as perfect. Like social media, I'm not going to like go on social media and be like, oh, Brad spilled coffee and didn't apologize.
There is a drop on the floor.
I'm not going to bring that shit to the table to every single person. So it might be harder. Like maybe some people on social media think that Brad and I are just like totally perfect, no problems. But none of my friends do. None of my family do. Like they know that there's ebbs and flows of the success of what we view the success as. And we got into a fight the other night and I literally woke up the next day and I was like, I could be super fucking pissed about this if I want. But then I'm like, oh, but I love him so much. And let's just talk about it. I don't know. It helps me to realize that relationships aren't perfect because I want to be with him forever and we're not perfect. Then accept the imperfections quicker and not dwell on them. And then break up inevitably.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a weird thing too. Like I talked to,
we need to wrap this up.
Yeah. I talked to a friend of mine who was, or I've talked to like multiple friends who were in like, you know, like heterosexual marriages. And I feel like if there was one thing I could like, you know, because it sounds like Holly, like obviously like your partner is like an enlightened, very like aware, connected to himself dude. But I think like a lot of men, particularly like who kind of come from that older school, more traditional view of things, like they're like, I want my wife to like give me sex and like, you know, like, and then that's just like, ugh, like how can the other person like not feel that a little bit? And I'm like, if you could just make a quarter turn and be like, hey, like, I want to have these moments of connection with my wife and just like loving, giving to each other intimacy. And like, if that's your consciousness when you're making the approach, like, I feel like the reaction you're going to get is going to be so different than like, oh, but like I did the dishes and like, you know, like, can I have this now? You know, like, I don't know.
And then your partner's like, say your partner is not at a place to have sex in that moment. Like they just are exhausted or something. you believe them. Like you don't assume they don't want you. You believe that they just need to lay down and they just need to be just uninterrupted. Because we'll have those moments too, where I think because we're so open about talking about sex and like talking, we love our sex life, that when those times come, we're both like fucking exhausted and we're just like, you know what, not today.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting here then going, oh my God, like he doesn't find me sexy anymore. Everything's wrong. Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Well, my laptop is going to die.
Oh.
This has been such an amazing conversation, Holly. And I thank you so much for being so vulnerable with us and sharing pieces of who you are all the way up to, your relationship, and just like being so real and giving people, I'm sure like so many people feel seen from this episode.
Oh, wow. That is, someone asked me recently, like, what's the best compliment you can receive? And now I have an answer. So.
Where can all of our listeners come find you and support you?
I on Instagram is for sure my number one hub of all things Holly. So at Holly Brown Comedy on Instagram. I occasionally tweet on It's Holly Brown on Twitter. And then I do run my stand-up show at Salty AF Show on Instagram as well.
Yes. You guys, if you're in LA, go see it. It's amazing.
Yeah. And like just a really cool lineup of like different kinds of comedians. Like it's not like one of the things I dig about is like, it wasn't just like white guy comedian after white guy comedian, so it's like a really cool eclectic lineup of people like different voices and stuff. Yeah, it was awesome.
Thank you for noticing too. Cause I think that's a goal. That's my number one goal in running the show, is I don't ever want it to feel like every other lineup, which that in itself is sad. Like it shouldn't have to be, it feels like every other lineup. Every lineup should be this way. But thank you. I appreciate you noticing. And I'm like, that makes me like you guys more.
Well, we'll definitely, we're going to come back. We're going to see your show again. I'm so glad we've made this connection. Thank you so much for coming on, Holly.
Thank you. I love what you guys are doing. And I can't wait to listen to that last episode. So we'll talk after probably.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.